All right, so picture this. It's Western India, 1659. You've got this huge Mughal general on one side, and on the other, a much smaller local leader named Shivaji. Now, they're supposed to be there for peace talks. The general, he's so sure of himself, because of his size, and he just grins and opens his arms for this friendly hug. So Shivaji steps in, but he's kind of hiding his hands. The general gives him this big squeeze, trying to crush him, but then he just stops. He feels this sharp, tearing pain. He looks down, and there's blood everywhere. Shivaji looks up at him and whispers.
And with a set of hidden steel tiger claws, he just tears into the general, disemboweling him and completely changing the course of history right there. Wow. I mean, that one move tells you everything you need to know about one of history's most amazing military minds. So how on earth did this guy, who was so completely outmatched, manage to build an entire empire right under the nose of a superpower? Okay, so to really get what was happening in that wild opening scene, you've got to understand the world back then. We're in the mid-1600s, right? And India is basically run by the Mughal Empire. I mean, these guys were rich, powerful, and pretty much the undisputed rulers of the whole subcontinent. But, their grip wasn't perfect. All over the place, local powers were always kind of poking and prodding, trying to carve out a little bit of freedom for themselves. And I mean, just look at this matchup. It tells you everything. You've got the Mughals, the big daddies, the establishment. And then you have Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. See, he wasn't going to be just another pawn in the empire's game. He had a much bigger idea, his own independent Maratha kingdom. But as you can see, the odds were not exactly in his favor. So here's the absolute key. Shivaji knew that fighting a normal war was basically suicide. The Mughals had this huge professional army. If he just met them on an open field for, a good old-fashioned stabbing contest, he would have been completely wiped out, turned into, a Maratha pancake. And we're not talking about a small disadvantage here. No, we're talking absolutely staggering odds. In a lot of his biggest fights, his forces were outnumbered 10-1. Think about that for a second. For every one of his soldiers, they had 10. How do you even begin to win a fight like that? Well, this is where Shivaji's genius really kicks in. He got it. When you can't win by playing by the book, you got to tear up the book and write a whole new one. He decided, okay, I'm not going to be a traditional warrior. Instead, he became what our source material calls a tricksy trickster. Which really brings us to the core question of this whole story, right? How do you beat an enemy that's bigger, stronger, and has way more money than you? An enemy you just can't fight straight up. And the answer is right here, guerrilla tactics. Shivaji didn't just use them, he became an absolute master of them. See, it's not about winning one big, glorious battle. Nope. It's about using speed, surprise, and knowing the land better than anyone else to slowly wear down a bigger, clumsier army. So what did that actually look like day to day? Well, this wasn't just running around and causing trouble. No, this was a carefully thought-out playbook for fighting when you're the underdog. And his method was just brilliant. So step 1, use the terrain. For him, the thick jungles and steep mountains weren't a problem. They were his best friends. Step 2, strike and seize. His guys would hit lightning fast, grab Mughal money and supplies, their moolah, and just create chaos. And then, the most important part, step 3, vanish like fog. Before the big, slow Mughal cavalry could even figure out what was happening, Shivaji's men were just gone, melted back into the jungle. This quote pretty much sums up his whole philosophy, doesn't it? The so-called rules of war, well, those are a luxury, and you just can't afford them when you're outnumbered 10-1. This isn't about playing fair. It's about winning. It's about surviving. So the big question is, did all this sneaky stuff actually work? Oh, you bet it did. These weren't just annoying little raids. Every single attack, every fort he took, was another piece of the Mughal Empire being slowly scratched away. He was building his kingdom one tiny cut at a time. And the results, well, they really speak for themselves. With this playbook, Shivaji took forts that the Mughals thought were literally impossible to capture. He carved out a huge piece of their territory. But it was more than just land. He actually fought to give his people a new identity, a unique Maratha identity built on the idea of self-rule and resistance. He created a legacy that would inspire people for centuries. So what's the big takeaway from Shivaji's incredible life? It's really a timeless lesson about strategy. His legacy proves that just having more soldiers or more money, well, it isn't everything. Being smart, Being able to adapt and being willing to throw out the rule book, that can be way more powerful.
Because what this whole story shows us is that when it all comes down to it, you really don't have to be the biggest or the strongest. You don't need to be the big daddy on the block to come out on top.
You just have to be the smartest fighter, the one who knows the land, who uses their enemy's own weight against them, and who refuses to play a game they're designed to lose. Shivaji proved that victory so often goes to the smartest guerrilla in the jungle. So there you have it, the guerrilla king who literally outthought an entire empire. The lesson here, stay smart, stay sneaky, and hey, if you ever find yourself in a so-called friendly hug with an opponent who seems to hold all the power, well, you might want to check for tiger claws.